Welcome to PACKOLUTION. In this podcast series, you'll hear the experts of the packaging industry talking about sustainability and the future of packaging. It is brought to you by Watron and hosted by one of its founders, Michaela Wachtel, and Sales Director Ton Kniepscher.
Welcome to another episode of PACKOLUTION, the disruptive podcast brought to you by Watron. Today we have Olaf Clemens from SN Maschinenbau as our guest, with whom we'll be talking about the special role and views of machine builders in the packaging world. Welcome, Olaf.
Yeah, good morning, Tom. Hope you're doing good, of course, and thank you for this invitation here. Really appreciate to discuss with you guys about, these really interesting scenes.
Good, thank you.
Olaf, can you tell us a bit about yourself and your career path, please?
Yeah, actually, I'm a quality industry engineer with strengths in mechanics, economics, business and product development. So over the last 30 years, I'm really working in that industry, horizontal packaging machinery for flexible materials. Yeah, that's quite some long time. The first 15 years, I worked for a company, Laudenberg, in different positions, starting at a plant engineer or the managing director there to the end of my career with Laudenberg. And then in 2008, I started my own business, SN Machinery. Yeah, actually with 5 employees at the beginning. Very small environment and startup. And today, roughly 14 years later, we are close to 300 employees. We have a nice plant here in Wipperfürth, close to Cologne, with our development center here, 2 different small production sites, and that is from where we walk out into the world today.
SN is a private company. From your point of view, do you have advantages in comparison to other, let's say, more corporate companies, for example, in terms of strategies and concepts for the future?
Yeah, interesting question. One of the very few private held companies in as a flexible horizontal pouch business. We are dealing always as competitors which are embedded into bigger structures and with much bigger turnovers than we are having. But I would say, especially in our field of business, we are in the meantime one of the top 3 vendors worldwide. And of course, there are many advantages in compared to bigger organizations in my private held company. Yeah? So the knowledge base which we really create and the connection our engineers and employees, it's very strong, and we understand the market and the business environment. I would say even a little bit better than bigger companies because we are really close connected with the market field. The customer relation is a personalized relation very often. So we have with a lot of customers friendly relations, our personalized performance, which we really offer as one important factor to our customers, is very welcome there. I believe the innovation speed which we can move forward with, which is directly related to which investments we are willing to spend and how do we create innovations, really an important factor in our competitive environment. We are quick, we can do decisions from today to tomorrow, and there is not the pressure that we get immediately within short terms a major benefit out of these developments. We are always looking in middle and long-term relations. So therefore, we are pretty much independently on the financial side. We do not have shareholders beside of me. And so we are pretty much free in the way we are acting. And that is a major advantage, how we develop the company and the business at all.
I think it sort of says that you're looking beyond the next quarter. You're not looking at just the short term, you're looking at the mid to long term.
We always look at mid and long term.
Yeah.
That is quite important. And that you can see also in our developments. Yeah, we are spending a lot of time into functionalities and ideas which might be a little bit too early for today, but which are finding the spot in 1 or 2 years' time from today.
And then will pay off.
And then, of course, they will pay off. That is always the goal we would like to achieve.
You just mentioned that you're active worldwide, so in many different regions in the world. And I can imagine that every region is probably a little bit different. So are there different criteria for packaging in the countries and regions, and what are they?
They're more than a little bit different. Our core market, we are coming out of Germany. Then the next market and the next circle around is Europe. So in Europe, we are doing maybe 50% of our business. From there, we move over to North America, which is also a very important part for our business. And we adapt further into Africa, New Zealand, Australia, and only a little bit into Asia. If you look into these 5 regions, I can tell you there are significant differences in this market, how they see on packaging, on sustainability, on recyclable materials, and so on. And I would say, especially on the sustainability aspect, we are here in Germany and in Europe at least 1 or 2 years ahead of North America, and maybe much more years ahead of Africa. That is related to how the societies are working there. And of course, that's what we develop in these facts or in these areas today for Europe might come up only in a year in North America, but it is at the end quite important that we can work on this spreading of the knowledge and the innovations in all these different areas. I believe we are coming late a little bit on the differences, but in general, I can say sustainability is a key fact on every day's customer discussion in Europe. How are the flexible materials? How can we seal them? What are the challenges? And so on. If I'm discussing today in North America with customers, we still talk a lot about output, packages, sizes, so on, how big they are, how much amount, and so on. And we feel that, of course, we're starting sustainable discussions there as well. But for a lot of customers, there's very often the cost factor of the material and the running factor on the equipment, the driving factor at this point. If we go to Africa, cost is the only factor. Say very clearly, okay, we cannot afford recyclable materials, sustainable materials, the efforts for it, and so on. We will wait another 2 or 3 years up to the pressure is getting higher.
That sense about sustainability, which you mentioned, how do you see the role of plastics in the packaging world, and then from a global as well as a European perspective?
As I mentioned before, I believe the global view on it, it's much different. And that is pretty much also cost-driven. We do not like to get too political now. I believe we in Europe have a very clear mindset what we have to do with our world and the environment there. And that is a little bit behind in different regions of this globe, also because they cannot afford the costs which are coming with that. But coming back to your question, we have a very clear understanding that's not good to find plastic out in the green, in the forest, anywhere in the sea, and so on. That's definitely not good. And we have to work as a society very strongly on this to get rid of this. But I can absolutely say that the plastic is a core material to get into that recyclable material and sustainability aspect of food packaging. As we see right now, there are not many materials on the market. If we talk from, for example, carton and glass and sheet metals and so on, which are having a very similar energy construction like plastic has. I believe in the next couple of years, we are still working very deeply on developing the right plastic materials, a little bit in combination with the development of the recyclability functionalities of this material. And then, of course, the machines have to be adapted that they can run a structure which is good to recycle and to reuse as often as we would like to see it. Of course, a major part of the complete process is not only the food industry and the film industry and the machine industry and so on. We also have to work a little bit on the education of the society and consumer base. What do they have to do right with the packaging material after they have used it?
I agree.
From your perspective as a mechanical engineer, what are the criteria for packaging? What constitutes to a good packaging? And what do you think is the most promising packaging for the future?
I would say around about 80% of the products we pack with our machines are anyhow related to the food industry. And it doesn't matter if we talk for human food or pet food. So there are a couple core functions or what a package has to do. First of all, to keep that portion of food, what we like to provide to the consumer, in a safe package. We need to have a protection for the food inside. And this protection can be, not to damage the food, have it gas tight, that there's no oxidation inside, that we are having it light tight, that UV or light not destroying any properties of the food inside and so on. If we all that keep in mind, I believe we still have to focus on these 2-3 factors. And then it comes to the technical part of the packaging. And that should be as light as possible to get the waste as low as possible. We have to think, how is the packaging material best to transport? Let's say after the film machine was the packaging material is made to the company which is using that packaging material. And fairly on a roll of film material, what we are using, there are many packages on. We are quickly talking from a roll of packaging or material which is roughly 600 millimeter in diameter, that there are 30 to 40,000 packaged only on one roll of material. That is so quite important, that's so tight and so compact, because also the transportation cost from, in our case, the film manufacturer to the packaging company / to the food company is as compact and as less as possible, because transportation is also creating CO2 and is having a high footprint. And if we get as compact the material as possible, then of course we are earning there as well material. And the same as after using it, if we collect the empty package and bringing it back to the firm or to the company which is going to recycle the material, makes the weight as light as possible. That is one of the most important things which we have to do. Every gram of package which we do not need to use to pack the product is a big win, because that we do not need to produce, that we do not need to transport and not need to recycle, and it's energy saving on all ends. I believe that is one of the biggest challenges, but also the biggest strength of a plastic package, that the product waste weight and the product protection is on a very high level here on a plastic pouch, for example.
In our preparation call, we talked about the growing role of flexible packaging, and this ties in with what you previously said. As the flexible packaging is replacing a lot of rigid packaging formats, for you, obviously, this is a good opportunity. But however, there's a lot of pressure from NGOs and consumers on the legislators to come with restrictions on plastic flexible packaging. For example, Ellen MacArthur Foundation. What is your view on this?
Yeah, we always have to look into the options. As I said before, the packaging weight is an important thing. If you are having a cup for a soup or something like this, which weighs 10 grams, for example, and having a lid on top and so on, or a pouch which is having only half the weight, we have already saved a lot of energy, resources, and so on. The pictures which we are seeing everywhere with the plastic material and especially pouches, bottles, and so on, anywhere in the sea, in forests, is of course creating in the society a certain picture of this packaging or format what we are having here. And I personally believe that we have to look into our options. What do we need to have and which functions are there to make it happen? At the end, we're always coming to a point that we are saying we need to, in Apostel, feed that big number of people, which are very often also concentrated in a high density, like in mega towns. And so we have to produce the food a little bit outside there where it grows. So at the end, I believe we really have to look critical, not into the packaging industry itself, what they can do. We also have to create a thinking, a knowledge at the end consumer, how to handle the package. What is the advantage? So I do not believe that we are having a chance that every human go out anywhere in a store, taking his cup of rice and going home from there. That is not so hygienic, that is not safe, so there must be a package or system behind. But at the end, if we give a better understanding, how is the cycle, the product cycle itself, that we can really use it, that we can buffer most of the energy in that plastic and take a lot back without putting a lot of energy into this process again. I believe about this opportunity, we even here in Germany or in Europe have over the base of our population too less knowledge how this process works and which advantage this process has.
I agree. This is what certain recyclers call the end-of-life stage in the packaging,
yes,
which needs to be considered.
That is important. So the consumer has also an importance in this. Look at a car. If the driver is not taking care that he is doing everything right with the car, then he is making an accident. And it's not only the question from the car company, it's also the driver involved into it. With packaging and the final consumer as well, the final consumer has a certain role in this cycle.
Yeah. And I fully agree with that. This leads me to my next question. One important part of your job is handling the various packaging films, including the new monomaterials. Can you briefly tell us a bit about the different types of films you work with?
I go a little bit into the history here. So a lot started, I would say, roughly 80 years ago, a long time, with a paper-based material, which was only folded and glued with a cold glue, basically based on water and starch. So these kind of pouches are still very popular in the seed industry, and that is quite some business for us. From there, it moved into a structure, most likely a paper based on the inner layer, a polyethylene sealant layer. So that packaging style was very common for a couple decades, I would say. In the 70s and 80s, there came up more plastic materials because we would also like to find different properties for the materials that we can handle, liquids, soups, beverages that we could retort and so on, which was not anymore able or possible to fulfill with the paper-based material. Then the industry developed materials which had 3, 4, 5 layers inside, based out of polyester, aluminum, polypropylene, nylon. So, and over the time, we as machine builder understood understood pretty well how to handle this material, which was all easy to handle out of today's view. In the last couple of years, the last 5 years, we started to find materials which most likely recyclable. We came back a little bit to the paper-based materials with all the limits they had in the past. We're still having them pretty much. But the plastic materials, let's say we are working very often to make it easy on structures where you're having, for example, a polyethylene inside, any barrier and a possible or outside layer also out of polyethylene, or the same with polypropylene, only to give 2 examples. The challenge now here is, that we still need to seal these materials together. If you have a PE inside and a PE outside, the temperature delta between the sealant point inside and outside is very narrow. Let's talk about 20 degrees, something like this. In some cases, maybe a little bit more. In some cases, a little bit less. The older structures, we were able to handle 80, 90 degrees difference from outside to inside. And this is pretty much the challenge we are doing right now, that we are getting into a better control of the film material and a much better understanding what actually happens at a sealing process. Till 2015, most of these companies in this pouch business said, okay, if that material is sealable, then we can seal it. Very easy. And that was, we need time and pressure and temperature, and we can seal it together. What we as SN have learned only in the last 2 years in regards of sealing and sealing properties and the environment is more than in the 30 years before. So we understand today how plastic flows, what are the properties of plastic. And we also understand pretty much heat distribution. And there we are quite close to you guys with Watron. You have developed a technology which enables the machine to have on a dot a heat control. And very precisely, we have different areas of temperature flow and need on a pouch. Let's assume we have a typical standard pouch. We have a gusset area. We have only a vertical area. We have maybe an area where a zipper profile is sealed, and all of these different regions in a pouch seal, in general, you need different temperatures to not overseal the one area or underseal the other area. With your technology from Watron, we can really address the needed energy flow in this area where we have to have a different temperature. And I believe that is a major step forward in handling these newer packaging materials, because at the end, it's not only sealing the pouch. If we are talking from a high-speed line doing a couple hundred pouches per minute or 10, 15, 20,000 pouches an hour, then stretch shrinking is a major factor to have an efficient machine run. Only with the combination of right technologies in our machine setup, we as a machine or builder get enabled to make your machine as efficient or even more efficient as we know it from the past, and we would like to be even more efficient in future as well. One of the biggest challenges on this is not the new equipment. If we're designing a new piece of machine or building year 2023 or 2024, we can foresee all of this. But there are thousands of machines from us also in the market, producing in the big brand owners' companies. And of course, they cannot be exchanged quickly because we are not having the resources. They are also not having the resources. So we have to find also a solution to make the older machines running the newest material. So, and that is, I would say, a big challenge, but we are on a good way. We're having exchange sets there on these models where it's possible. possible with different technologies. This is also a USP in our case. We're having a very nice test plant here on site where we can simulate any sealing environment, machine environment in our test plant to pre-test what is the old equipment more or less looking like, and then saying, okay, this and that is necessary to make the new product or the new film also run. There's still a lot of work to do for all of us for the next couple of years, but we are seeing a lot of light on the horizon, what we not have seen maybe 2 years ago.
As you have also mentioned, there is currently a lot of movement in the packaging world, and especially regarding sustainability. You already mentioned sustainability. Maybe we can make a deep dive into this topic, and you can share your view on sustainability, maybe on a more or general view of packaging, not only plastic, but what is your view on this sustainability?
I tell you, this is the number one topic in our company. We're developing a lot here on new machine models, ideas, but every customer discussion today will not end without at least talking shortly about this topic. That gives only an impression how important it becomes to the industry. Here in Europe, we have quite some good laws prepared to move everybody into the same direction, but in different regions, it looks a little bit different. But at least they're asking a little, in which way would the packaging or material change? Can we foresee anything? And we here in SN, we invested really into a development center of recyclable material. And I believe that was one of the best decisions we have made 2 years ago to develop equipment with different sealing technologies, different monitoring of data that we're understanding the process more better. If we look into this picture of recyclable material, I believe we should also not take out of our view that the distribution of products is going to change as well. So we all see that a lot of food and pouches and goods are not bought today or anymore only in a grocery market or in a pharmacy. No, a lot of products are handled today over internet trading like Amazon. And if we're coming into a trading concept which is online, then maybe also the packaging presentation itself is not as important anymore as if you would have it in front of you on the shelf and you have to decide right or left. Typical wise, the buyer takes a couple seconds to make this decision. If we see this, how that will change in the next 5 to 10 years dramatically, in my opinion, to an online trading system. Of course, we can focus more to optimize the package, to protect the product still, but we maybe do not need to take so much focus on how is everything looking like. So at the end, it is quite important that we focus to 100% with our strengths on this recyclability and sustainability of the materials, because we're having so many resources, oil, energy, and if we do a package for one-time use and then we destroy it and not use it further, to be honest, then our planet is anytime empty. It's as easy. It's used and it's not growing from the ground back. So it's so important to find a system that we can almost use that basic material, which we had here for the packaging material, as often as possible. Of course, we have maybe not found today the right technology to use it 100 times. And also for the same purpose like we had before. If you pack water in it into a pouch and then you recycle, most likely you're using that or that new material not again for a water pouch. But I believe to understand understands that the technology is moving so far further that you can separate the single components out of this packaging so clearly and so pure that you can reuse it very often for the same purpose. The industry has a very clear order and also a self-order. And that is one of our major acting parts as well, to work hard on big innovations to make this happen. That is much, much more the biggest chance we had over the last, let's say, 50 years in packaging to make something good for the world, to make it happen that materials are reused and reused and reused. So nobody would come on the idea, if he has a piece of gold, to dump it into the garden and grow it under and it's gone. Nobody would do it. I can tell you, packaging material, oil, plastic, energy is a different kind of gold. If we dump it, it's gone. And if we reuse it, it's the future, definitely. And that is one of our biggest aims here in SN, to find the best technology and working hard. Therefore, we are connected with different film manufacturers, with you guys to find technologies. We are connected with universities to think on this. We are always having our part into it and talking in these different regions on this globe as well with the responsible people on this. Of course, the speed is different, but the idea is the same.
Packaging material, as you rightfully said, is a very valuable resource. And if you just don't throw it away, because we need it again. For sure.
Only one word to it. Yeah. I believe also here the consumer is not seeing it as a resource.
Yeah.
And that is again a certain education aspect that we have to bring this message also into the society a little bit more, to give them an understanding, okay, that is an important good even after we have used it.
This is a perfect introduction into my next question. What are the strategies to change the established way of thinking in this area, both with the brand owners, also with the consumers, short-term to long-term? How do you see this?
As I mentioned before, we are not thinking for such a long time about all these points. Some of us a little bit longer, but the discussions are not very long. Maybe 5 years in this width what we are having. Yeah? And for some of us, maybe a little bit longer. At the end, I believe we have really a challenge that we start with us, that we talk in between the industry, also with our competitors, about this thing and how we are finding the right solutions there. So it's always important that we have certain opportunities for changing the business from today to tomorrow. Short terms is always on such a big change or a little bit different. Yeah? But middle and long term is that we have to bring the machine vendors together, that we have to bring the film producers, packaging material producers together. In most likely cases for us, the food brand owners and these guys which are using the packaging machines and all the packaging materials, and also the customers, the consumers. It starts in a small core, maybe in our machine builder view, but we need also the governments, the bigger organizations to create thinking and an understanding where we would like to be in 10 years' time from today. It's very important that the education, what are we doing and why are we doing this and what are our options, has to be a less emotional base of discussion, that we are coming more to the core of facts.
Fact-driven discussion, correct, yeah.
Exactly, because what all these discussions today are doing in TVs, news, internet, most of the organizations only would like to make people aware of what is happening with these kind of packages. You see dramatic pictures, whales dying with a lot of plastic in their stomach. And that is good to make people aware of this. But we are not saying anything, what can we do against that? And only binding this and moving it away is not a solution because we have no option for this, at least right now. So in the next level, we have to focus a little bit more on it. Okay, we need this, this, and this. We have to feed 8 billion people on this planet with different food. And we create so many packages for doing this. And how do we collect? What is the consumer able to do in this chain? What is the producer doing to do? And those things we have to put together and also look with all these challenges a little bit, especially here in Germany, into our demographics. How will our consumption change while our society get older? That is a little bit different here in Germany than in other areas of this globe. There we have a much younger society, and maybe we can address certain information also in a different way. So it's long-term not an easy thing, but we have to start a discussion on a fact-based fundament and work not as a single company. Instead of this, we have to find a union together for this challenge. And that is nothing where competitors should see really deeply their competitive advantage. There are too many companies running around this business that one can pick out. We can only have a joint goal to fulfill. There we have also to cooperate on this factor. And we are open to this, always.
We've reached the end of this episode. Is there anything that you would like to add?
The main thing is we have one of the biggest challenges of the industry, but also one of the big chances for the industry. And now we need to focus on our joint target as an industry together. And of course, we all need to find our competitive situation, but we are not going to win as an individual company. We can only win as the industry for packaging material and for packaging machines and food production. So that would be my big aim. And also my big wish that we are finding a future in the next, let's say 2-3 years, a future answer to this, and that we are giving the world and the environment a very positive view on these plastic packages. And that should be not only a view, that has to be a fact-based fundament, which is telling, okay, this kind of packaging is good for the protection of the food. It's cheap to produce. It's safe from the energy. We keep the resources very long in that circle. That is finally my major standpoint to these difficult questions, and it will guide our main acting line for the next couple of years here in SN.
I couldn't agree more with that. Thank you for that statement. So this concludes another episode of our podcast, PACKOLUTION. Thank you, Olaf, for sharing your experiences and vision with us. Very interesting for us and hopefully for our listeners. Please stay tuned in this channel for more inspiring episodes of PACKOLUTION with experts in the packaging industry.